Hebrews 1, you cannot go to Hebrews 1 and think that it's not going to teach the pre-existent Christ. Look, this is what we have here, guys. In Hebrews,
yeah, and you can't go to Hebrews 1 and think it's not going to teach a created Jesus, because it does all over the place. I've talked about this text numerous times and you haven't said one word. So you're clearly running from people who know what they're talking about, and that doesn't include you, as we just saw, and we'll see again right here.
Hebrews 1, this is how it starts off with, just like how Alex read it, right? Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets, but in these last days, he has spoken to us by his son. Now, this is where Alex stopped. He stopped there. He did not quote the full verse. Watch what the full verse says in verse 2. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom he also created the world. What? So you mean to tell me?
Yeah, what? So God, right? It says God there, right? You see that word God? Who's that? That's God, right? There's only one God. Who's that? The Father, no Trinity. So we have God here. There's no Trinity here. It's clearly presenting God different from his son. Any non-idiot can see that. And then it says, he appointed him heir of all things. So he's not eternally the heir of all things. And then it says, through whom he, that is God, created the world. Right. So there's no son creating anything here. There's God creating through the Son here, and the Son separate from God being appointed as heir. All disproves the Trinity so far.
I mean, in the same verse that Alex quotes, it literally says that Jesus pre-existed the world. And in the Hebrews,
yeah, but you're not, you don't understand. Alex specifically brought up the angel of the Lord in relation to Hebrews 1 to present the dilemma I presented to you earlier. He just didn't do that good of a job from what I saw. I didn't see the whole debate with him and David Wood, so maybe he did. Either way, if you don't know the argument, then you're stupider than I thought. It's real clear. You think Jesus is the angel of the Lord, appeared throughout the Old Testament in a flame of fire. Okay, well, Hebrews 1 is referring to those very same angels who appeared in the very same Old Testament as those very flames of fire. And it says, to which one of these angels did he say this? Well, what's your answer, God Logic? Did he say it to one of those angels that has to include the angel of the Lord as a flame of fire in the Old Testament, or not? Okay, so you would say no, right? He didn't say it to the angel of the Lord. Oh, but he did, right? Because he is the angel of the Lord to you. So do you think Hebrews 1 is asking a question that with a negative rhetorical answer? Or do you think the answer is positive and is to be answered, he said it to the angel of the Lord? You would actually have to conclude that, even though you don't, I don't think. Again, different views can be out there. But I'd like to know, I haven't heard you answer it. How is it that Jesus stays the angel of the Lord, never gives that up, because he's the second of the person of the Trinity is that. That's his essential nature, right? Okay, so he never gave up being the angel of the Lord. Then how is it that Hebrews 1 applies to the angel of the Lord? I understand Hebrews 1 teaches preexistence. I agree with you there. You're still not addressing the angel of the Lord dilemma that Alex brought up, even if he didn't articulate it like I do. The fact is, you can't answer this question. And no matter what answer you give, it's going to contradict Hebrews 2. Because it says he became lower than the angels. So he couldn't possibly have been an angel when those words were said to him, disproving your view. Let's see what else you say that it has to be disproven.
In the Greek, it actually means the ages, the times. Jesus pre-existed the times and created the times. Huh?
Right. It's talking about him creating the physical realm of the world and the ages of the realm of the world. Same as we read in Proverbs 8, where wisdom is created first and glad before Yahweh time after time. So you're not properly contextualizing time or age, and you probably don't understand either one. And so it's not talking about, you don't even believe, I don't think, that there are ages in heaven. So even according to you, this would have to only be in terms of the earthly worlds or ages. Now, I do believe there are ages in heaven or times in heaven. So for me, it's not a problem, but it's still contextually referring to the physical realm, physical world, cosmos. So, or I'm sorry, it does use the word for ages there. But it also is discussing the ages are part of the world that came into existence through the Son. So we believe that, same as Colossians 1. But you don't, I think, believe in ages or time in heaven. So I would need to know more about your view on that in order to explain to you how Proverbs 8 shows you're wrong there too. But you seem to be wanting to expand this beyond the physical ages of the world, but maybe not. I guess we'll see.
And you go here? No way. And guys, this is just verse 2.
He came here because of the angel of the Lord argument, God logic. He didn't come here for these other reasons. Okay, and you're not addressing that. You don't anywhere address this specific point about how is it that Hebrews 1 says, to which of the angels did he ever say, you are my son, I today have become your father, if Jesus is always the angel of the Lord? I haven't heard an answer from you on that.
Let's keep going. He is the radiance of the glory of God.
Right. He's the outshining, the apelgosma of God's glory. Because like we reviewed earlier in my unanswerables questions, they don't share the same nature, or they would have the same glory, the same life, and the same name eternally. This proves right here, as I've talked about many times, you just don't know about it because you're not interested in the truth. He's not even God's glory. Yeah, he's not sharing the nature of God, or he'd have that same glory and he'd be giving off the same outshining that comes from that same glory. So you're disproving your view right here.
And the exact imprint of his nature.
Right there, created son, firstborn, game over. Character always and only can mean a temporal act. There is no option. There is no other meaning. Just like born, just like create, and you guys lie about those too. Now, you guys also say, like I talked about earlier, that character means exact in every single way. Like, no difference, no matter what. Exact same in exactly the same in every single exact way, right? Wrong. But because you guys are wrong and think you're right, explain to me how then no one can see the Father, but we can see the Son. But they share the same nature, which would have to have the same glory, disproven right here, eternally, and therefore be the visible component of both of them. And their face would have to be the same because it's exactly the same according to you, according to this text in Hebrews 1. What's happening here, you can't have it both. Is it the exact imprint of the Father, no difference, no distinction, even the same nature, right? Like he's imprinting in himself, right? So stupid. Like you guys are retards. Like someone gives birth inside themselves. That's how dumb you are. You guys think that God imprints on his own nature, which would be a total violation of Middle Platonism anyway. God doesn't change in those ways. It's over. Now, he's an imprint, dude. What do you not understand here? So where are you getting eternality and sharing the same nature? Yeah, no, if you're the imprint of something, you're not as old as that something. No. Time does not get imprinted. Yeah, no, never, not one time, in any copy, in any way, ever. That's how dumb you guys are.
And he upholds the universe by the word of his power.
Right. We accept that. Now, this is speaking of the present. So actually, someone like Alex could tell you it's talking about him after his resurrection, which you don't address here because you're stupid. Nevertheless, I do agree with you. This is talking about both pre-existence and since his resurrection. I think this is who he is. Now, for Alex, though, again, you're not making any points here, okay? The through, created through the Son part, I think that's probably your best pre-existence here for Alex. Verse 3 forward, they just say that applies after his resurrection. It's even written in the present. He is, not was or has been. So, and he upholds. right? Now, I do believe that goes back to before his becoming a man, but it wouldn't work with Alex. Either way, look at how it says he upholds the universe by the word of his power. See, word doesn't always mean the actual abstraction, or it does mean, I'm sorry, because I'm talking about the word, speaking of word. This is the word using words to accomplish things. Just like God speaks words, like we discussed earlier, to accomplish things. That doesn't make the abstract words actual things or beings, like Jesus the word is. There's a difference, and you guys miss it and or conflate it all the time.
My goodness. Doesn't sound like some mere man to me.
It's not about being a mere man. It's about whether it teaches pre-existence. And this does not, because it's referring to him in the present, even though I do agree with you. Alex could say, no, this is in the present. It's not referring to him in the past. So we're talking about pre-existence, right?
Doesn't sound like some mere prophet or some angel. This is God himself.
Some angel. Okay. No one says he's just some angel or a mere prophet, I guess, unless, who are you talking about here? Maybe Alex. So it's possible. I don't know that Alex would put it quite like that, though, but maybe.
Himself, the second person of the Trinity, who upholds.
No, nowhere does it say those words here or even imply it, and everything it does say contradicts it. We just read it. God is talking to his son, who is the imprint of his being. He's not even his glory. He's the outshining, the radiance off of that glory. So they're clearly not sharing the same being. One's a copy of the other. Proof, game over right there. Now, you just said he's the second person of the Trinity in spite of all that. So again, evidence means jack shit to you, dude. You literally think Hebrews 11:26 is talking about Moses fearing Jesus. No, it's talking about him regarding the insults of being the Christ as worth more than all the treasures of Egypt. It's not talking about Jesus pre-existing there, although I don't think that's inconsistent with it. It's still not what you were saying, and you misquoted it several times. The Greek proves he wants that. He regards the insult of the Christ as greater, as better, more important than all the treasures of Egypt. That's why he endured it, God logic. He wasn't running around fearing the Christ. He wanted to be insulted as the Christ. Think about it. Let's hear what else you said.
And sustains the universe by the word of his power, and who is the exact imprint of the nature of the Father. That means...
Right. So he's a copy of the Father, because what's born from spirit is spirit, right? So is spirit like a copy of spirit? Right. It is. It's the same thing. You know how a human is born from a human, flesh from flesh? Exactly. You see that? Right. So angels, they're spirits, right? Hebrews 1:7-11. He makes his angels spirits. God's a spirit. John 4:24. So what's born from spirit, John 3:3, is spirit. What don't you understand? Well, everything, right? Because you don't believe the Bible. You think being an imprint means you're sharing the same nature as the one who's imprinting you, right? Gone. You think that being the radiance off of the glory of that being is the same as being that being or sharing his nature. No, totally different. You also think, what did you say about the imprint of his nature again?
Means that whatever the Father is, Christ is also. They have this.
No, that's never what that word means. Did you know that? Character, it's used all throughout the first century. You could just do a word search in Philo of Alexandria. He's got like tons of volumes. I have them all. Uses character all over the place. Always for a temporal object. You know why? That's all the word means. It means a copy. Right, God logic. It means if you have a ring like they used to have, and it's got an image on it, you take some wax, you put it on the letter, and then you stamp your ring into it. That's a character. That's all it ever means. It never, ever means what you just said. Did you know that? Did you know you just invented a definition? That he has to be exactly like him in every way, when it never, ever means that, nor can it mean that? The very concept of being a character can't mean that. Because then you would be the thing imprinting you. You understand? You're back to modalism again. It's over. So it always means an imprint into a separate substance. That's what it always means Otherwise, you're saying that the usage pertains to a ring that's always connected to the wax and have the same substance. Guess what? That's never what it means. No, because you're lying again, you understand? You're taking words that mean one thing and just lying, Wax is not the same as the metal ring. It looks the same. It's the exact image. Guess what? It's actually a little different and not the same substance. And no, they weren't made at the same time either. Do you know that would defeat the whole idea of a character? So stupid.
The same exact nature.
Right, spirit.
Let's keep going. After making purification of sins, he sat down at the right hand of the majesty.
Right? What do you mean? After making a purification for our sins. Okay. So he became a man there, right? Because that's where he made a purification for our sins. As a man. And in the Bible, Acts chapter 2, Acts 7, 1 Peter 3, 1 Corinthians 15, Revelation 3, after he lives and dies as a man, he sits down at the right hand of who? The majesty on high. God. So there is no Trinity here. There's just God, his Son, and the majesty on high. That's it. And the Son is described in ways that could in no way and never are attributed to God. God doesn't have someone else create through him. Gone. God is not the radiance of someone else's glory. That is blasphemy. God is not the imprint of someone else's nature. And God did not become lower than the angels to make a purification for our sins, after which God sat down at the right hand of someone else called the majesty on high. So we're in Hebrews 1, my favorite chapter, verses 1 through 3. Trinity, gone, right? Out of here.
On high, having become as much superior to the angels.
Uh-oh. Sam got sodomized again. By God Logic. And William, they double donged, right? Did you see that guy? He just blew past the destruction that was staring him in the face the whole time. Not just verses 1 through 3, right? Verse 4 just annihilates these guys, right? What do you mean he became better than the angels? What are you talking about, dude? He's God, right? What? Right? This is unbelievable. Let's see what he says.
As the name he inherited is more excellent than theirs. Now, let's keep going.
Oh, so he didn't say jack shit, right? In other words, God Logic, let's get the hell out of Hebrews 1, right? The chapter that you pretended that you can't believe anyone but a Trinitarian would cite. Has anyone ever seen a person run by a verse like that? Look, you got to see that again. Look at this. Right? Think of what's going through his brain as he's reading his destruction, right? I mean, the guy literally switched off his logic for verses 1 through 3. He gets to verse 4, right? And just dies.
Same exact nature. This is Hebrews 1.
Yeah, the verse that's killing you. Right? This guy's crazy.
No way.
Oh, yeah, way, pal.
Let's keep going.
Right? So he's pumped up now, right? This is Hebrews 1. Let's keep going. All right, so the next verse has got to be awesome, right? Bet it is.
After making purification of sins, he sat down at the right hand of the majesty on high, having become.
He actually blew past that part of verse 3 as well, right? Just totally ignored it, like it wasn't even there. This chapter that's like loaded with stuff he just can't believe anyone would come here, right? He just blows past that second half, verse 3, goes right to verse 4, blows past that, right? Unbelievable.
As much superior to the angels as the name he inherited is more excellent than theirs. Now, let's keep going.
Yeah, you better keep going, man. Do you see how fast? Look at it. He scrolled. Look at it. He actually pulled it down. He pulled it up, right? He got that off the screen like as fast as you could. Look at that, dude. Look at this guy. He blows past the second half, verse 3. He gets to verse 4, where it says, after he made a purification and sat down the right hand of majesty, verse 4 says, he became superior, better than the angels. That's it. Okay. Right there, it is over. Everything, right? God is never, ever, not one time, not superior to the angels. Jesus was not superior, wasn't even equal to them, pal. Have you ever read Hebrews 2:9? Yeah, it's quoting Psalm 8, which you also didn't reference with your discussion with Alex Connor. Right, because is Jesus the mankind of Psalm 8? We'll get to your misuse of Psalm 45 in a minute, pal. You blew that big time. Yeah, it says in Hebrews 2:9, he became lower than the angels. In Hebrews 1:4, it says he became better than the angels. So, what do we do here, God logic? Well, we just read the Bible, right? He became lower than the angels. And then he became better than the angels. What's the conclusion, genius? He wasn't better than the angels. He wasn't even equal to them when he was lower than them as a man. The exact one to whom God spoke the words of Psalm 2 to, not an angel, just a man. That's why it says he became lower than the angels in Hebrews 2, and it says he became better than the angels in Hebrews 1. After he made a purification, after he sat down at the right hand of the majesty, not because he has a better nature. Do you see those words here? No, he's got a copy nature, right? He was imprinted by God. We read that. And what's born from spirit is spirit. We read that. Angels are spirits. We read that. Or it's right here in Hebrews 1, Psalm 104. Okay, so how does he become better than the angels, God logic? By nature? No. He gets a better name, proving my unanswerable's number 5. He's not Yahweh eternally. He can be given Yahweh's name, because that's what Yahweh does. When he creates someone for his glory, gives him his name. Yeah, you just don't know the Bible because you're stupid, right? That's why you just ran by a verse and a half that totally destroys your doctrine. He's not Yahweh. He's not even the angel of the Lord eternally. He gave that up. Kanao, Philippians 2:5-6. Became lower than the angels, Hebrews 2:9, just like the humans that text is quoted from in Psalm 8, doesn't identify him as those men, does it? No. It's referring to, again, humans as humankind, like in Genesis, where Kelly gets confused. It has nothing to do with conjoinment. It's the type of nature these beings are. Human, flesh, spirit. It's not talking about conjoinment. Otherwise, none of this would be said. None of this would be happening. He would have always been better than the angels. He would have always had the name Yahweh, And neither one of those are true. Right here. He was not always better than the angels. He actually explicitly became lower than the angels, again disproving your view in Hebrews. And he had to inherit a name he didn't have to become better than them. Why? He's not Yahweh eternally. Real simple. Unless you're stupid.
As the name he inherited is more excellent than theirs. Now,
he's just scrolling. He's like, I'm out of here, right? Get me the hell out of Hebrews 1, right? What? Did I say Hebrews 1? I meant John 1, right?
Let's keep going, because what the Father says about the Son.
I mean, he just blew past verse 5, verse 6, right? He literally blew past verse 5, which is the key to this whole discussion in terms of, is he the angel of Yahweh according to Hebrews 1? That's what Alex was getting to, you dummy. The whole point of this question is what you guys often use against us, because you're liars. You say, Hebrews 1 says, to which of the angels does he ever say these things? And then it goes on to say things that were only said of Jesus as a man, not the angel of the Lord, not even an angel. He's lower than them. That's why the author of Hebrews 1 is doing this. He's applying it to a man, stupid. Just told you that in verse 4. Became a man, sat down at the right hand of the Majesty, got a new name, became better than the angels. Real simple, okay? He's not God. He's not a person of the Trinity. He's not even an angel in terms of being the angel of the Lord or flame of fire with that nature as a man. That's the whole point. And that's why the author of Hebrews 1 can say, to which of the angels did he ever say this? Answer, none. He said it to someone who became lower than those angels. So easy.
It's done.
Oh, he also ran by Hebrews 1:6, where God, right, is differentiated from his firstborn and brings him into the world and has all the angels worship him as a human again, because all these texts since verse 4 are talking about him as a man and showing these were said to a man, not to angels, from verse 5 forward, after he became better. And it says he became better because God said these things to him when he was resurrected, not to an angel. So how can he be the angel of the Lord then? That's the issue, dude. What you guys keep running from in addition to everything else. In fact, he wouldn't even be able to quote Psalm 97:7 the way he does in verse 6 if he thought Jesus was the angel of the Lord. It says all God's angels worship him. It's talking to him about when he became a man and was born in the manger and the angels came to him. He brought his firstborn into the world. That's what it's talking about. Why he's different from the angels. That wasn't said to him as an angel. It was said to him as a man.
Done. It's over. I know it was over already in verse 2, but watch as we continue. But of the Son, he says, your throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of uprightness is the scepter of your kingdom. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness beyond your companions. Oh, Avery, it's over. Right there. Boom. You see?
Exactly, right? Because not only do you rely on a mistranslation of this verse, God Logic, I have a playlist called Translation Issues. I haven't updated it in a while, but there's a video on there about this text, Hebrews 1:8 and Psalm 45, that makes it very clear you guys are all wrong. And you guys just aren't reading the context of Psalm 45, so you don't understand how the Greek is reading there. It's not a vocative, it's a nominative with an understood verb that you guys just don't understand. There's nothing there that requires this to be a vocative and have, oh God. And the context has usages similar to this verse in Psalm 45 that show that's not what it's talking about. So until you or someone else respond to my video, again, you're stupid. And you're ignoring the information that shows you're wrong. And yes, you are wrong even apart from that, because it shows right here he has a God. You guys don't understand that, okay? And you misapplied, as we're going to talk about in a moment. It also says that God anointed him beyond his companions. God doesn't have companions, and God isn't anointed by anyone.
Therefore, God, your God. There's no way Jesus is God. He doesn't.
Well, what you mean by God is totally different. He can be and is called God and addressed as God, just like the angels of God are all throughout the Old Testament. That's what the Bible teaches. God creates beings for his glory and gives them his name. We see it in Exodus 23. We see it with Jesus in the Old Testament and New. I talked about it earlier. Unanswerables number 5. So you've fallen under the spell of Trinitarianism. You, like Sam and others, misuse the word God. You're using it in multiple ways that are none of which are rooted in the Bible. When you say God, you don't mean a God or God as a singular person. You mean the Trinity, the divine nature, as this impersonal substance that's eternal and not just what spirits share individually, or a person of the Trinity. That's all you ever mean. That's all you can mean, dude. You don't mean what the Bible means, because if you ever did, you wouldn't believe in the Trinity.
Share the same nature? No, right?
As sharing the same nature, you're misusing terms. We're talking about conjoinment, consubstantiality, you understand? They're all spirits. Yeah, they all have the same nature. John 4:24, God's spirit. 1 Corinthians 15:45, Jesus was created as a life-giving spirit. Throughout the Old Testament, he's an angelic spirit. Angels are spirits. God makes his angels spirits. You guys are stupid, so we have to keep saying this. So they have the same nature, right? Just like Adam and Eve. It's the same nature. They're not sharing the same nature. No, that is never what the Bible means. Not for humans, not for spirits. Never, not one time.
It's over. No way. You have, obviously, where Jesus takes on flesh, humbles himself as the servant, and according to Jeremiah 32:27, God is the God of all flesh. So when Jesus becomes flesh, the Father becomes his God. That's
okay. So, but you believe he's still God and just has flesh. You don't believe he ever stopped being God. The Bible doesn't say he just humbled himself. It says he emptied himself of the Marphe Theou and took on the form of a man. So what you're saying is true only if you believe he's actually just a man, a perfect man, the last Adam, lower than the angels. The Bible is not talking about him just the God of his humanity. You're splitting up the persons. You're creating two people. So if he's got two natures, he's already two people. You guys are just stupid and liars, man. It's like creation ex nihilo. It's not possible, but you're dumb, so you believe it anyway. So Jesus doesn't have two natures and two minds and two centers of consciousness, dude. It's just one. There is no divine and then human part of him. He's either both of those into one somehow, according to you, and only has one center of consciousness and is one person, or he's two. Because a nature defines a person. Did you know that? Right. You don't have a nature unless you're a person. That's your nature. So if you believe Jesus has two natures, he has to be two people. There is no other conclusion scientifically or psychologically. But because you guys are stupid and you believe your false doctrine over science, no one can help you. Okay? So you believe in two people in one person. It's just not something that's ever going to work. Now, you're saying he's addressed as God here. At the same time, he's being said to have a God. You can't split it up like that, dude. That's such a horrific method of interpretation. We're literally looking at one verse where it says, therefore, God, your God. Right after you allegedly say he's called God. So he's being addressed as God or he's not. The author of Hebrews and Psalms isn't like switching in and out here, right? I'm going to talk to your human nature here. I'm going to talk to your divine nature here, but you're still only one person, okay? Right? No, you're stupid. You see, that's what you guys are forced to do. You're forced to say, well, he's God here, but he's also a man here. But the writer's just referring to him as God, according to you. So as God, dumbass, he has a God. That's what this is saying according to you. You are saying, and you're wrong, but because you're stupid, we'll go with it, I guess. You're saying he's being called God by the same person who says he has a God. So he's being addressed as God, not a man. Your throne, O God, is forever. You love righteousness, therefore God, you're God. He's not changing his address here. He's addressing him as God according to you. So there is no human part of him being addressed here. It's the God. You're just lying when you get to the part that doesn't agree with your doctrine. That doesn't work. You have to be able to show that he's like addressing two natures here, which is so stupid, right? No one would even think like that, except you guys. So he's clearly not doing what you're talking about. He's either addressing Jesus as God here, which he's not, and if he is, that's who has a God, the one he's talking to. Thy throne, O God, therefore God, your God, anointed you. There's no change here. There's no change in address. There's no nothing here, dude. Otherwise, you'd have to say that Thomas is only referring to Jesus as his God in a human sense. Right, because he's just referring to him as, he's speaking to him as a human. He's not talking to him as God there. No, he's talking to him as a man. So he only has Jesus as his God as a man, right? Because that's who he is there. And in fact, Thomas required that human proof before he would address him as his God. So if what you're saying is true, that also has to be true. Because he's a man there, not God. Only here he's God, not a man. So it actually works against you in John 20:28 and not against me here. Sorry, you lose, no Trinity.
That's why in Psalms 22 it says, at my mother's womb you became my God. Right? So it's once Jesus.
Okay, well, that's talking about human beings who are born, and then, of course, their existence actually begins at that point, right? So, no, he's called the God of the gods all throughout the Psalms, okay? And even in Deuteronomy, called the God of the gods. So Jesus equates himself with the sons of God in John 10, Psalm 82, showing clearly he's one of the sons of God who are gods. That's who has a God. He's the God of gods is the God of those gods, okay? That's why he's with that God, and he's the only begotten God who only does that God's will. It's real simple. But it's also true that humans, and even Jesus, when he was born, because he was created at that time, God became his God at that time too. So you're not proving anything here, except that he's also his God at his birth.
Jesus takes on flesh and takes on that role of a servant. The Father becomes his God in that sense. Not that he's...
No, he's the God of gods all throughout the Old Testament, and Jesus is the only begotten God who is in the bosom with the Father and explained him that we've seen, which isn't true of God. So they're not the same God. We also know that Jesus is explicitly referred to in a human sense as mighty God in Isaiah 9:6. So what you're saying here doesn't even necessarily apply in any way to a divine nature. The psalm literally is from original application to a human king that we're going to get to again because you totally lied about that, blew it big time. So you're making all kinds of assumptions here that aren't necessary at all and could be argued against easily, like I just did. But the fact is that no matter what, if you have God being addressed here, the God being addressed here has a God. There's no way out, pal. This is not Yahweh. Not eternally, by the way, but a created Yahweh for Yahweh's glory. Isaiah 43:7, Philippians 2:9-11.
He's a separate God than...
Right, the only begotten God who's with God in the beginning, like the angels who are also God, sons of God, all throughout the Old Testament. Did you know even in the New, there's only one God to us, the Father, even though there are many gods and many lords in heaven and on earth. Exactly. That's what the Bible teaches. It's not henotheism in the classical sense, because all those sons of God who follow their Father are only him to us. That's not the same as other henotheistic religions. I'll talk about that more in another video.
The Son, or they're not separate, but these are.
Yeah, they actually are separate, and you've proven that all through to this point in Hebrews 1. He's the character of God's nature. So right there, full separation. He's the apelgosma of God's glory. Right there, full separation. He's the one God created through, full separation. He's the one who became better than the angels, full separation. Sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high, full separation. He's the firstborn of the God of the Old Testament that God brought into the world for all the angels who aren't humans like him to worship. Full separation right there. It's all over the place, pal, even Hebrews 1:5. I today have begotten you. I today have created you at his resurrection. Just like 1 Corinthians 15:45. Full separation, game over.
It's his relation with the Father according to his flesh. Now, we see.
No, nothing in the Bible says anything about anything like what you just said. And as I just said, and as we can read right here, you are arguing he's addressed as God here. So he's God here, he's not flesh here. You can't just switch out of context, dude. That's not how this works. So the context is, you say he's being addressed as Almighty God here. The same address says he has a God. He's not being addressed as a man here in the way you're thinking. Like with two natures. It actually is addressing him as a man since his resurrection. But you think it's addressing him in his divine nature here, God logic. So then the full address has to be to his divine nature. It's not in any way separating the references here to human versus divine. And you can't do that anyway without creating two people, which is a heresy and not even possible. So you're just lying. So he's either being addressed in his divine nature here as having a God, or he's not. Take your pick.
See that the Father calls him God, exalts him.
No, the Father doesn't call him God here. That's another lie. You're just following Sam the dumbass here. And why don't you read Psalm 102, okay? It's a prayer of a lowly person. It's not God talking here or in Psalm 102. You guys are stupid.
Anoints him, but what else does the Father say? You, Lord.
The Father's not talking here, dumbass, and it wouldn't even be possible according to Jesus anyway, because in Psalm 110:1, David refers to Jesus at that time as his Lord. And Jesus uses that text to show that if they're right that he's the son of David, why does David call him Lord? Because Psalm 110:1 isn't referring to him as the son of David. It's referring, David's talking to him right then and there as the Lord appointed over Israel, the Prince Michael. You guys are done. And so it proves right there, which we'll get to more in a moment, where you blow Lord. It's not talking, this isn't the Father talking, okay? And the use of Lord in Psalm 110:1 is what this is talking about, as I'm going to show you.
Laid the foundation of the earth in the beginning, and the heavens are the work of your hands. This is the Father calling the Son Lord, and it's quoting Psalm 102, which is referring to Yahweh, actually.
Okay, you're wrong in everything you just said. Yahweh is not talking here or in Psalm 102. So where are you getting that from? He can't be talking here according to Jesus, because David can't be, Jesus, the Lord, David's Lord in Psalm 110:1 can't be his son, because David calls him Lord in that text. He can't be his son in that text. He's trying to explain to the Jews that he's not just David's son. It's actually something you could benefit from if you actually understood it, which you don't. We'll get to that more in a moment. Okay, so this is not the Father talking. You understand? This isn't even a quotation from the Hebrew text of Psalm 102. But you guys are stupid and lie about this all the time. So this is not the Father talking. This is the psalmist praying to God in the Hebrew and the Greek. But in the Greek, there is a difference, several differences. in these verses that are quoted and right before them. An omission of the word for God and a use of the word Lord, which is not in the Hebrew text. The divine name is also not in this quotation of Psalm 102. That's a lie. The word Lord does not occur here in the Hebrew. The divine name does not occur here in the Hebrew. And a word for God right before this in Psalm 102 does also not occur in the Greek because it's changed. It's made into a messianic text either before or after the author of Hebrews 1 quoted it, and it's entirely consistent with the early church and New Testament teaching of Jesus as the wisdom of God. Why? The very same activities described here, laying the foundation of the earth, it's in the beginning, God logic. Okay, so all the angels, all the sons of God are with God in the beginning, according to Job 38. Jesus is one of those angels, sons of God, which you know. This is talking about the earth being made. Genesis 1 starts out with God creating the heavens and the earth directly. Then it says God acted on the earth and formed it from a formless and wasteful body. It was formless and waste, and then God acted upon it and made it into what it is. But it was created before he made it into what it is. It just wasn't made into what it's being made into right here. Right here, it's talking about how the foundation of the earth was laid and the heavens were prepared, right? Just like in Genesis 1. Just like we see the earth laid, the entirety of the earth prepared, the waters brought back, the land showing, all the trees growing, the heavens being made, right? Light, the firmament, right? The layers of the atmosphere of the heavens. That's what we believe Jesus made. This is not talking about him creating things. It's talking, well, creation in the sense that, like I said, Hebrews 3:4, every house is built by someone, but he that constructed all things is God. It's the same verb, katasquazo. So God constructs everything by everything coming out of him, but that doesn't mean we can't build houses out of that stuff or that the Son can't build the heavens or humankind. That's why God says, let us make. He makes it out of the dust, God logic. That's already come out of the Father. So the Son is preparing the earth right here and the heavens exactly like we read in Proverbs 8. I mean, do you ever watch my stuff, dude? Are you that stupid? I don't think you do because I don't think you can handle it. I think it's just too much for you. But I don't care anymore because you're misleading too many people. And you guys are stupid. Proverbs 8 refers to these exact same things. That wisdom is right there with y'all preparing, putting together as a worker. That was the first, the beginning of his works. Created, katizo, created as the beginning, arche, of his way, the first of his works of long ago. And then it says wisdom was with him day after day, putting these things together. So you just don't understand our view, or you're stupid, or a liar. But I'm tired of having to repeat myself to you idiots. And I'm tired of you guys out here lying about things you don't understand. This is not the Father talking, dumbass. This is not the Father calling the Son Lord, stupid. You guys are idiots and you deserve all this. You're wolves. You're out here fleecing people for popularity and money. You should get your ass out there and get a job. If you have one, you should go out there and work some more. Because this isn't your calling, pal. You're stupid. You literally don't understand any of this and don't even understand what we think about it. And this isn't even talking about him before he became a man. It's, even though consistent with all that, it's talking about him after he was resurrected. The author of Hebrews isn't quoting this to show he was the one who did these things. It does, because I agree with that, right? It's what Proverbs 8 teaches and what we believe. Even consistent with what he said in Hebrews 1:3, 1, 2, and 3. God creates through the Son. Well, this is how he does it. Everything comes out of the Father, 1 Corinthians 8:6, and the Son helps put things together. Through the Son puts them together. So you guys are stupid. That's why it's God speaking to someone else. It's not a person of God. It's God, the one God, talking to his Son. So, but that's not what's going on here. We know that, in fact. We know this is not talking about Jesus before his resurrection, even though it adequately applies to him. This is where Alex was right when he responded to you and said, this doesn't make them, the application of text applied to one being in the Old Testament doesn't equate the two. And you get all lost and you collapsed in Psalm 45, which we'll get to, but you ignored Psalm 8, right? You ignored Psalm 2, which is referring to David. So these aren't for the purpose of making an identification. He told you what he was doing. He's telling you how the Son became better than the angels. Well, right there, you know he's not Yahweh. He had to become better than the angels. Okay, how did he become better than the angels? He got a new name. He became God's Son by means of the resurrection and sat at his right hand. He was worshipped by all the angels as God's firstborn in the earth. God is his throne, that's the proper translation, the source of his authority, and anointed him more than his partners, his companions. These are all the evidences he's been giving to this point. So now he gets to verse 10. And then he cites another evidence. Well, what evidence could this possibly be that makes him better than the angels since his resurrection? It said he became better than them after he made a purification and sat down. That's the only time he got that name. Okay, so how does quoting Psalm 102 and applying it to the Son make him better than the angels, God logic, after he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty and got a new name? All of these are evidences so far from verse 5 forward. Verse 4 is where he started explaining this. And then he started quoting verses in verse 5. For to which of the angels have you ever said this? You ever said that? It's talking about the biblical writer, not the Father, you moron. You guys are stupid. So how is Psalm 102, 25 through 27, in the Messianic Greek version or the Hebrew version, but he's quoting the Greek, how does this show he's better than the angels, God logic, since his resurrection, since that's what he's doing? It wouldn't even make sense for him to be trying to apply this before his resurrection, because that's not what he said he's doing. He said he became better after he got a new name. For to which of the angels did he ever say this? So everything is about since his resurrection. And before he got to verse 4, talked about before becoming a man. God created the worlds through him. He's the imprint of his nature, outshining of his glory. Then he became a man, lower than the angels, made a purification, died faithful, got a new name, sat down at God's right hand, became better than the angels. Because to which of the angels did he ever say this or that and this, right? Exactly. So when he quotes Psalm 102 in a Messianic version, which uses terms that aren't in the Hebrew version, does not use Lord at all in the Hebrew version, let alone the divine name, but is a text that talks about how Yahweh is eternal. He doesn't die, right? Look, read it. Heavens are the work of your hands, they will perish, you remain. They will all wear out. Like a robe, you roll them up. They will, like a garment, be changed. But you are the same. Your years will have no end. That's the bulk of what he's talking about. He's only quoting the part related to the creation because, again, I believe that does apply to him. From verse 2, that's clear. And the use of Proverbs 8 and the messianic version of this text, it's not talking about Yahweh, it's talking about the Lord. The Psalm 110 Lord, which is what he talks about next. We're going to get to it. Look, the bulk of verses 10 through 12 from Psalm 102, 25 to 27 is about him never dying, him not wearing out. Like literally verses 11 and 12 are all about that. Verse 10 just sets up the contrast between the creation that wears out and God or Jesus who do not. Originally, this text applies to Yahweh in the Hebrew version, right? Because he doesn't wear out. He doesn't ever die. Hebrews 1, the author is quoting this in a messianic version that's totally different from the Hebrew and applying it to Jesus after his resurrection to show he became better than the angels because he does not die anymore. Look, we can prove it. It says, you remain, they'll wear out, they will be changed, but you are the same. Well, that can't apply to him before the resurrection, which also proves he can't be Yahweh of the Hebrew text of Psalm 102. Why? Yahweh never did change. He did. He literally gave up his divine nature. Emptied. Kanao. It's gone. There is no other meaning. It doesn't mean limited. Game over. Became lower than the angels. Do you understand? Not equal, not better, lower. A man. Yeah. Like someone with Psalm 8. No, he's not those men, dummies. That's not what quoting text and applying them to different people prove. No, it just proves that like the original people that those texts apply to, something is similar with this one. Yeah, same with Yahweh in the Hebrew. He never dies. Same with Jesus in the Greek. Since his resurrection, he never dies either. Because he got a new name, and he's immortal at the right hand of the Father. He changed, idiots. He changed his nature from being the angel of Yahweh to being a man. He changed from being a man to being a life-giving spirit again. And he got a name he didn't have before. Game over. Right? What are you talking about? He changed. What in the hell are you talking about? You guys are dumber than dumb.
So really, the Father is identifying Jesus as Yahweh, who laid the foundation of the earth and worked out the heavens with his hands.
You see how stupid this guy is, right? He's got gone. He's not only wrong that Yahweh is speaking here. Why don't you try reading the opening verses of Psalm 102, lame brain? These guys are gone. That's why we got to deal with them. The lying, right? The blasphemy from these pigs. Sam, you are despicable for training these pigs. It's not Yahweh talking to him. So you're wrong right there, idiot. It's referring to him after his resurrection, not talking about things he did before his resurrection. It's applying the text that originally applied to Yahweh, who did these things through his son and who never dies, to the son who did these things for Yahweh, who now never dies because he's better than the angels since his resurrection. Yeah, it says he's better than them because he got a name that's better than them, because now he no longer dies, unlike them. So he's not applying this to the Son for any of the reasons you're talking about. In fact, it couldn't even be true. The verse says Yahweh does not change. He's the same. So there's no way the author of Hebrews could be applying this for the same purpose that the text applied to Yahweh in the Hebrew. No way. He does not change. This one changes, and that's okay, because he's not Yahweh. The author of Hebrews is quoting the messianic version of the psalm, which uses Lord, that the Hebrew doesn't, and removes God, that the Hebrew has in the preceding verses, and It talks about him in these ways after his resurrection. It's not talking about him never changing ever eternally, God logic. Since his resurrection, he doesn't change. Why? Because he changed to become a man and to become a spirit again. So we know he changes. That's a fact. Even if you want to say he took on another nature and still had the same nature, he never gave that up, that's still a change. He's got a new nature now. That's a difference. That's called a change, right? And not possible either. It's stupid. But because you guys force us to deal with the levels of dumb that you do, we have to.
He did it. He's Yahweh.
No, it said, well, whether he did it or not is another question, like I just explained. It's not identifying him as Yahweh. It clearly describes wisdom and the Son as the agents of Yahweh in creation. Literally doing these very same things in Proverbs 8. Like right there, wisdom is described as being created first, and then working with Yahweh to put all these things together. So what are you not understanding? He's either the wisdom that was created or he's the Yahweh who's uncreated. Oh, but he's the character of that Yahweh's being? Oh, so we know he's created. Oh, so this applies to him after his resurrection because he changed to become a man and since his resurrection become a spirit again? Oh, so it's not talking about him being Yahweh like the Hebrew is, right? No, it's totally different. And even the text he's quoting is not the same. You're a liar and you're stupid.
According to the Father, they will perish, but you.
And that proves even further how dumb you are, that you would actually say the Father. That's blasphemy. And you need to repent. And I'm gonna, this is unacceptable, right? We're going to take these creeps out. Okay. These are liars. He came to us from Sam. He's a pervert and a liar. This guy's stupid. He doesn't understand Hebrews 11:26. He doesn't understand Hebrews 1 at all. And I doubt he's even read Hebrews 2.
Remain. They will wear out like a garment. Like a robe, you will roll them up. Like a garment that will be changed, but you are the same, and your years will have no end.
Right. Well, since he died and had to be resurrected by the Father, Galatians 1:1, his years did come to an end. Right. The Father had to actually save him out of death. Have you ever read Hebrews 5:7? He was faithful to the one who was able to save him out of death. Yeah, that's the Father, Galatians 1:1. He was created a life-giving spirit, Genomai. Adam was created a life-giving soul. Jesus was created a life-giving spirit. Okay, so his years did end. He died. God doesn't die. His years have no end. It's right here. So that's not why he's applying this psalm to him. It's real obvious. He's not applying this psalm to him, God logic, for the reasons the psalm was written about Yahweh. No. Just like Psalm 2, Psalm 8, and Psalm 45 aren't being applied in the exact same way to Jesus in Hebrews 1. No, it's really easy when you're not stupid, right? So he does change. We've seen that. He just doesn't change and his years don't run out since he was resurrected, became better than the angels. Before that, he definitely changed and his years definitely ended. So the Hebrew of Psalm 102 does not apply to him. And even the Greek of Psalm 102 does not apply to him before his resurrection in the latter sense of verses 11 and 12. Sorry, game over.
There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Hebrews chapter 1, the very chapter.
So we can all see he just did it again. As you can see, God logic ran away from verse 13 because he's a coward. We saw him run away from the second half of verse 3. We saw him basically collapse over verse 4. We saw him flee and run away from verses 5 and 6 and 7, and then misinterpret verse 8 and 9. And then he just collapsed over verses 10 through 12 and totally interpreted them in every conceivable way. Right? And then he acts like verse 13 is not even a part of the text, right? Like, oh yeah, Hebrews chapter 1. Oh, did you read verse 13? Oh, what does it say? And to which of the angels has he ever said, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet? Weird, huh? Yeah, because again, he's showing how he became better than the angels. Did you know that? Yeah, that's why it says, to which of the angels did he ever say this? Exactly. So, since he said this at his resurrection, since the words of David's Lord were actually spoken to that Lord when he was resurrected, even though David's referring to his Lord at the present time that he is his Lord before becoming his son, hence Jesus' words. Exactly. So we can see right here in verse 13 that God logic wanted to omit from the entire first chapter of Hebrews that he's again showing reasons why Jesus is better than the angels since he became resurrected. He's not talking about him before becoming resurrected. It's talking about him after he lived and died faithful as a man. That's when he never changed. That's when his years never ran out. And that's how he became better than the angels. Obviously, right? He wasn't better than the angels before. And according to you guys, he did those things in Psalm 102 before becoming a man. So why does Hebrews 1:4 say he became better than the angels after his resurrection? Exactly, because that's not why he's quoting Psalm 102. Otherwise, that would show he's better than them before his resurrection, right? If he's the God of Psalm 102, who did all those things before becoming a man, not just the agent in creation for God doing those things, that the author of Hebrews is applying it to based on, or in relation to, but for the purpose of showing how he became better since his resurrection. If it's applied to him before his resurrection, then he's already better than the angels before his resurrection, contradicting verse 4. So that together with him changing before becoming a man and since becoming a man proves, and his years ending, being a man, dying, that's not what he's doing. He's doing exactly what verse 13, the rest of the other verses say, showing why and how he became better than the angels after he was resurrected. It literally says that explicitly. He became better. Okay, that's mutability. That's changing. That's not being the same. Making a purification for our sins, that's not your years never running out. That's them running out. So it applies after that. It can only apply to him after that, no matter what you say. It's the whole point of him quoting it. Look at the last quote he makes. That's from Psalm 110:1. What does that say? Yahweh said to my Lord, sit at my right hand. That's the Lord he's talking about when he adds it or uses it from the Greek version in verse 10, quoting Psalm 102. That doesn't call Yahweh Lord in Psalm 102. It doesn't even use the divine name there in Psalm 102. It's added to make this messianic, and these people are too stupid to understand that. And it's added apart from the divine name, just like Psalm 110:1 uses Lord in contrast with the divine name. Apart from it, it's not the divine name here. That's not what Lord is here. It's the Psalm 110:1 Lord, proven by the very next quote this pig omitted and ran from.
There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Hebrews chapter 1, the very chapter that Alex O'Connor went to try to disprove the pre-incarnate Christ, actually bolsters the pre-incarnate Christ with no doubt. David Wood did an amazing job demonstrating how Jesus claimed to be Yahweh and pre-existed his human birth, and the writers of Hebrews as well clearly lays out that Jesus pre-existed. So there's no reason for anybody to doubt. If they just read, forget interpreting, forget interpretation, forget trying to come up with your own thing. The only thing we do around here, y'all, is we just read.
And that's basically the only thing he didn't do, right? Guys like reading words into everything, saying the Father praised the Son, running past multiple verses in Hebrews 1, right? The guy barely read hardly any of it, misinterpreted all of it. And look, you guys understand, you can be called Yahweh That's what Isaiah 43:7 says. Yahweh creates people he calls by his name for his glory. Right, so showing Jesus as Yahweh proves our point. He's called by Yahweh's name for Yahweh's glory, like Philippians 2:9 through 11 teaches, because he's not Yahweh. He's created for Yahweh's glory. And when you actually read Hebrews 1, which you didn't do, you might learn something, God logic, because the way you chose to read it just shows you're stupid, dude. You literally destroyed yourself with that reading. I mean, it was a catastrophe in every way.